Hey guys, Troy here with Romanoff. In this video, we're going to be talking about the best way to set yourself up on a seam inspection, a carpet seam inspection, to be able to identify what the specific issue is with that seam. In this video, we're not going to be talking about or showing the specific issues. We're simply going to talk about the first steps to be able to put you in position to be able to identify what that specific seam issue is. We will be making other videos that go over in detail the different specific seam issues. This one is going to show you how to get to the point where you can now identify what that issue exactly is. So let's get started. Okay, the first thing that we're going to want to do on a seam inspection is verify that the two pieces of material that are seamed together are going the same direction, meaning that the nap is sweeping in the same direction for both pieces. So this is a sample piece of carpet. We have a seam down the middle of it. What you're going to use is a plain piece of paper and any pencil, doesn't matter if it's smooth or ribbed. You're going to lay the piece of paper on one side of the seam. You're going to take your pencil and you're going to roll it back and forth with your hand. Whichever direction that paper moves is the direction that the sweep of that carpet is going. It does not matter which way you roll the pencil. The paper will go in the direction of the seam. I check this side over here. Paper moves in the same direction. I've now confirmed that for this seam, both pieces of carpet are going in the same direction. Okay, the next thing that we're going to want to do is locate the actual seam itself. Specifically, we know it's in this general area. There's a couple ways to do that, or a few ways to do it. One, you can use your fingers and try to separate and find a piece of the backing. I can see right here that there is the backings together there, so I know the seam's right here. It's a good way to start to find the seam. Once you've found it, we need to find a bigger area. There's a couple ways I like to do that. One is using a metal, not a plastic, metal knitting needle. Number 13 works best for me. You can try different sizes. The plastic ones tend to melt with friction, rubbing them through the carpet. You want a fairly blunt tip, nothing too sharp that's going to poke down into the carpet. But once I identify that the seam is about right there, I can take my knitting needle and not sticking it down, but rather guiding it this way. I'm not trying to get down into the seam, I'm just trying to separate the rows a little bit. And by creating a line, not necessarily directly on the seam, but close to it, I can better identify where that seam is. Then I've got these little shims that I use. You can use a credit card, an ID, a driver's license for the next step, which is to try to identify more of that seam. So for this right here, I've identified, okay, I'm pretty much on the seam. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to tape back some of the nap so that we can get a better look without having our two hands holding something. So once you find the seam and you've got it spread apart and you've got a pretty good idea of where it is, the next step is going to be to tape it. Okay, now that we've identified where the seam is and we've separated and got a good look at where the two backings meet, we want to get a piece of tape and tape the nap back to be able to get a better look at the seam. When you're doing this, it's a good idea to use either a lightweight masking tape, painter's tape. Stay away from a Gorilla tape, a duct tape, anything that's going to be too sticky and possibly damage the fibers. Okay, so we've located the seam. We have verified both sides, the material on both sides of the seam, to verify that the sweep or nap direction is in fact going in the same direction on both pieces. We have talked about using a knitting needle. Again, I use a size 13. Use what works best for you, remembering not to poke down into the backing, but rather to guide yourself along, help you locate the seam. And then finally, using a credit card or an ID, driver's license, to separate the nap and then apply tape. That allows us to be able to look into the seam hands-free. We can pull it apart farther by pulling on the tape to get a better look at the joint of the seam. The final step before identifying the seam issue is going to be to verify that there has been seam sealer used. You will use your black light flashlight, and you should get a nice consistent glow, not too thick. You don't want it to be spotty, just a nice consistent glow that shows me that this installer has in fact used a seam sealer with a tracer, which is required on all your residential carpets. So that's it for setting yourself up. Be on the lookout for some additional videos that we'll be uploading that will identify specific seam issues. So that's it for this. Follow these steps. It's going to put you in the best position to be able to identify issues with pour seams.